Okay, I'm back, YouTube. Segment 2. So like I said, I blacked out completely, and apparently, af for what my relatives say, and my husband, was that everybody, arrived. My uncle called the emergency number, and then my sister-in-law, drove in a rush back, back to my house. My husband was called and notified, that something had happened, something was wrong. So, apparently everybody got there, and they were taking me to the hospital in the ambulance. My husband made it, since, it's a little town. You can get anywhere within 10 minutes, basically. So, they took me to the hospital there. And then my husband explained to me that I guess I had my heart stopped while in the hospital, or at the moment when I got there. So they rushed him out, and then I was revived. They revived me, and they decided that I guess I was in such a bad condition that I needed to be transferred to TJ. Because they didn't have they have good medical service, but they did not have a intensive care unit. So that would only be able to, happen in TJ. So they transferred me to TJ, and apparently when I got there, they said that, well, my husband told me that I had another heart attack, and I was again revived. So they put me into they had me like on life support type thing, I believe. And they did not a surgery. They did a procedure where they placed 2 stents into my artery. And then the doctor explained to my husband that, that I had already suffered, 3 heart attacks, and that I was in really bad shape, and that the possibilities of me surviving were going to be, 30% maybe. That he needed to get a hold of, if I had kids, my kids and my relatives, my brothers and sisters, my father or mother. Because sure enough, if I were to have another heart attack, that I just was, that I wasn't going to make it. So I imagine that must have been, a tough situation for my family, and, especially my husband, So he notified, he called my kids because they were here, in the U.S. And I know, it wasn't a long drive. It's only a 2-hour drive, but I imagine it must have been hard for them, to have to drive, and knowing that their mother was basically, dying. Well, I made it, overnight, and things got better, I guess they were like waiting for the first 24 hours or 48 hours, I don't know. And I survived it. And I recall, I think within a week, maybe, I think is when I actually came to. And when I was waking up, I see the doctor, telling me, that I was in the hospital, and that I had 3 heart attacks, and that I was lucky to be alive. It was kind of hard, to understand at that moment, what had happened. And I felt really sore. I had a pain up in here, Later on, I knew that it was because of the heart compressions and, shocks or whatever. So, I mean, I feel like if my collarbone was broken, that type of thing. Apparently it wasn't, but, that's how it felt. So then, you know, I was in a hospital for Christmas. I really don't even remember much of those days. I think I don't even remember Christmas there. I do recall the day I left the hospital, which was December 31st on New Year's. And I remember it being so cold that day. So, I mean, it was a joy to be able to go home. But I knew, it was hard. I felt very weak. Very, very weak. So I get home. And, I was happy to be alive. I was still kind of like lost, like not understanding what had really happened or why, And I know, my family everyone was there, happy, to see me and giving me that support, that the love, It was hard for me because I've always been real self-dependent, and then it was like I needed help for everything, I have a 2-story home, and there's no way I would have made it upstairs on my own, My husband literally, carried me upstairs. So, I was very weak. It felt very frustrating, to the point where, I couldn't put on my socks by myself, I had to have help to change, and it's that moment where I was wondering, like, why am I living? If I thought, I thought at that moment that my life was going to be that way, and I'm sorry, I get emotional because it was a very rough moment for me, I felt that, I was going to have to be helped all the time to do everything, I couldn't even put on my socks. So, it was really hard, for a first week. And then I started feeling sick. I started coughing a lot, and I wasn't feeling well within a week. So I had to go to the doctor, something was wrong again. And sure enough, once I got there, they said that I had pneumonia. So, lucky me. Back into the hospital, within a week. And now with pneumonia. And so I was back in the hospital like for another week or two until the pneumonia went away. And then I was released once again, and feeling a little better, a little bit stronger, It was very hard for me to be in the hospital in Mexico because let me tell you, it's nothing like here in the U.S., nothing, the hospital. And I'm going to have to stop again and do my, third segment. So, see you back.